just as a disclaimer real quick, I'm going to offend everybody tonight at some point. Not intentionally. It's not intentional. I don't want to. I'm not trying. I really am not. In fact, I'm actually mad at myself for starting Daniel. Because if I didn't have to teach this book, I wouldn't be talking about this stuff. There's a lot of happy messages I could be doing right now. But in this book, we just have to dig in where it takes us, and we don't have a choice. So if you get offended tonight, just assume that someone else will be offended later tonight. So it's equal opportunity offense all the way around. So we're in Daniel chapter 7, and this is what we called last week was horns, or 2 weeks ago, the horns of power, part 1. Now we're in part 2. Probably going to be a part 3 because I don't think I'll make it through tonight. I've got a stopping place. If I get running and we can get there, I'll do it, but I don't think we do. I put a note in to stop here. Last time we covered part of Daniel 7, and we highlighted a couple big thoughts. The first one was a connection of the 4 kingdoms from Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7, and we connected those together, and we identified, for those of you that have heard that message or were here, the Son of Man. How many of you heard that message or were here? Remember that? Son of Man. We did that, okay? And we highlighted the scene in heaven that was taking place in Daniel 7. We noted the majestic entrance, the language, the throne, the connection to other passages, both in the Hebrew Bible and in the apostolic writings. And we confirmed that the Son of Man is the Messiah and was Yeshua. He fit the bill. And the title Son of Man defined him not as a man, but as divine. And we played that out through the Scriptures. And so today we're going to focus on the identity of the little horn. And that's going to take us a little while to work through because there's quite a bit of unpacking here and a lot of impact that this has. So let's look at a few verses to get going. Daniel 7, starting in verse 15. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was disturbed within me, and the visions of my head alarmed me. I approached one of those standing nearby and asked him the true meaning of all of this. And he spoke with me and revealed the interpretation of these things. These large beasts, 4 in number, are 4 kings that will rise from the earth. But the Kedoshim, or the saints, or the holy ones of the Most High, will receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, yes, forever and ever. So here Daniel is searching for answers. He's gotten this vision, and he's asking, I really understand exactly what's going on here. And now he's starting to get some answers. And verse 17 gives us some valuable information. The 4 beasts are 4 kings, so it tells us what they are. Then it says the Kedoshim, that's the holy ones or saints, they receive the kingdom forever. So good news. Everybody say good news. If you're one of the Kedoshim, you're one of the saints, you're one of the holy ones, guess what? You're going to receive the kingdom forever and ever and ever. So that's good news. That's a positive. No matter how bad everything gets, and you might want to take my volume down a little bit. I might get fired up. No matter how bad everything gets, the good news is we get the kingdom. Somebody say amen to that. I mean, that's good news right here. It's a process to get there, but we will be possessors of the kingdom of God on earth, the holy people of God. And they will be ruled by the Son of Man. We learned that last week. The Son of Man is on the throne, and He's given all the power over the kingdom. So the Son of Man, the Mashiach, rules all the Kedoshim who then inherit the kingdom. Yes, thank you. A couple of y'all are happy. I'm happy. That's good. Okay? So that is our hope. And we are to live holy and righteous and not be beastly. See what I did there? Now, when the Messiah returns, we will be given the kingdom, and that's the plan from the beginning. God Himself created the garden. He put mankind in the garden to steward it, and then the garden was to be exported to the entire earth. Well, that export didn't go as well as planned, and we had some problems along the way. But eventually, we will see the fruition of that garden taking place, and that's the kingdom of heaven on earth. Going to verse 19 now, says, Then I wanted to know the true meaning of the 4th beast. So he's got some answers. The beasts are the kings, we get the kingdom, etc. But now he's like, I got to get a little more detail. So I want to know the meaning of the fourth beast that was different from all the others, exceedingly terrifying, with iron teeth, bronze claws, which broke in pieces and devoured and then stomped with its feet anything that remained. Of the 10 horns on its head, the other horn that sprang up before which 3 others fell, that horn, eyes and mouth speaking arrogant things, and its appearance was more imposing than its companions. As I was watching, that horn was waging war against the Kedoshim and overpowering them. Okay? Y'all follow? The Kedoshim's not doing well. There's a horn. It's more powerful coming out of this fourth beast, and it's overpowering the Kedoshim, which we were just told will inherit what? The kingdom. So we're going to rule under Messiah's rule. We're going to rule under him, and we're going to inherit the kingdom, be possessors. It's awesome. And yet, at this point, in whatever timeline this is, which we'll get to, we're being overpowered. Are y'all following? Until when? Until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was rendered in favor of the Kedoshim of the Most High, when the time came and the Kedoshim possessed the kingdom. So until the Ancient of Days come, but we're told earlier that the Son of Man will come. Thus, again, the connection, Son of Man is a divine title of the Mashiach, who is divine and is the King. The little horn befell 3 other horns. The little horn had eyes and a mouth and was waging war with the holy ones, was overpowering them, and was doing this until the Ancient of Days came. Verse 23, thus he explained, the fourth beast will be a fourth kingdom on earth that will be different from all other kingdoms. It will devour the whole earth and trample it and crush it. As for the 10 horns out of this kingdom, say this kingdom, which kingdom? The fourth kingdom. Out of the fourth kingdom, everybody with me? Out of the fourth kingdom, the 10 horns out of this kingdom, 10 kings will arise. Okay? Got a fourth beast. That beast is the king. That fourth kingdom, 10 kings will come out of that kingdom. Okay? Another will arise after them, but he will be different from the previous ones, and he will subdue 3 of those kings. So there are 10 kings that arise. After them another king, which is an 11th king. He comes up. He's the little horn, and he takes 3 of those kings out. Verse 25, he will speak words against the Most High. This is a critical verse. He will speak words against the Most High and will continually harass the Kedoshim of the Most High, and will try to change the appointed times and the law. So this king speaks out against the Most High. We see here that this king will try to change the appointed times, try to change the law of God, the prayer times, the calendar, if you will, the feast times, the Shabbat, the law, the Torah of God, his laws and his ways. This king will take power and change things for his benefit. Verse 25 continues, the Kedoshim will be handed over to him for a time, a times, and a half a time. Say time, times, half a time. But the court will sit, and he will be stripped of his power and be destroyed and abolished for all time. Yeah. Woo! Verse 27. Then the kingdom, power, and greatness of the kingdoms under all heaven will be given to the people of the Kedoshim of the Most High. Their kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions will serve and obey them. Okay, so we got a lot to unpack here. And you might tonight want to sit up in your chair a little bit because there's going to be a brain dump happening tonight, okay? For those who love history and education, tonight is your night. For those that just want to be pumped up and inspired, may the Ruach bless you. Verse 8, Daniel thought and pondered, what are these horns? What are they going to mean? He's grasping, he's wrestling, he's trying to figure out what the 10 horns are. And what is this little horn, this fourth beast that's different than these other beasts? So the Roman Empire came to power. We know the fourth beast is Rome. Rome came to power nearly the same time as Greece was falling from power during the Maccabean revolt. Now, I'm going to go through a good deal of dates tonight, and I want you not to get bogged down in them. I'm just giving them to you so you can just have an idea. Don't get all hung up in the dates because you can deal with that later. There's a couple significant dates, and I'll make sure you know those by probably saying something like, this is a significant date. Okay? Rome grew fairly slowly. Officially, Rome actually began in 747 BCE, when it was actually founded. But it's a very old place, but it grew very, very slowly. And it had a big power move 700 years later, after it was founded, in 44 BCE. Everybody say 44. Okay, that's a good number to have in your head, so now you kind of get a picture. So Yeshua was born sometime between 6, 7, 4, 3, 2 BCE. Okay, ish, in that area. So this is about 40 some odd years before Yeshua. Everybody follow? Rome has a big push for power at that point. It's after Julius Caesar gets assassinated, and Rome will increase dramatically in power in a very short period of time. It'll hit its pinnacle of power in 117 BCE and will control everything you see, which is pretty much the entire known world except for some very small parts that are not really inhabited by very many people. A lot of power. Now, Daniel prophesies that this fourth beast will devour all that came before it. Rome did. After the assassination in 44 BCE, there were 3 major rulers that split up. Now, I know we're going to get into some history tonight, so y'all just stay with me. I'm going to try to make it simple, but you just got to kind of stay in it tonight, okay? So this will make, I can't give you the conclusions tonight until we get this foundation stuff. It won't make sense otherwise. So you got 3 rulers, Mark Antony, Lepidus, and Octavian. Octavian was Caesar's nephew, and he ruled Rome from 31 BCE, was when he was crowned. He was the first real emperor of Rome, and he got renamed Augustus. We're getting ready to come up on the month of. He reigned from officially 27 BCE to 14 of the Common Era. And after him, the Caesars that followed him, they devoured and they broke up every enemy that was out there, and they just took over the world, which is what Daniel had prophesied that we read just a moment ago. Now, many of you are familiar with some Roman history in regards to the Scriptures and how it integrated with Israel. Rome ruled Israel and then destroyed Jerusalem in 70 of the Common Era. Now, that's an important date. That's significant. 70. Everybody say 70. In that year, Rome came in and destroyed the temple. Okay? Again, putting a finality, came in 135 of the Common Era. Everybody say 135. There was a revolt in Israel. Rome had destroyed the temple, but it had left the Jewish people still in Israel to a degree. And a man named who became known as Bar-Kokhba, he got anointed as the Messiah by the most senior sage of the time, Rabbi Akiva. And Bar-Kokhba then wanted a revolt. So they raised up an army to revolt against Rome and say, we're going to take the country back. We're getting rid of Rome. I'm the Messiah. Now's the time. Let's go to war. And 550,000 Jews were killed. Almost the entire population wiped out in 135. By 136, the decrees were in, and most Jewish people were exiled. The ones that were left were either kidnapped or enslaved. And that was pretty much the end of it at that point for Israel until 1948. There's one reason 1967, everybody say 1967. That year's very important. There was a little war that went on. It's called the 1967 war, a little 6-day battle. But in that little battle that we had in 67, it became pretty impressive because it's the first time since 135 and really the first time since 70 that the Jewish people once again had Jerusalem. They took Jerusalem back and became the stewards of the city of God once again in 1967. So that's a big deal from 67 when Rome came in to start destroying Jerusalem, completing it in 70 to 1967. 1900 years later, they finally had control of Jerusalem again. All right, so that gives you a little picture. Now we're going to get a little more Rome history because we're getting ready to get to the little horn. Everybody still with me? Y'all good? Okay, you're like, I came to hear about the Bible. I don't know why you're talking about Rome so much. Because we got to understand this to understand Daniel 7. 293 to 312, the Roman Empire has been divided. That began around 286 with a Roman emperor named Diocletian. He split the empire into two empires, an Eastern Empire and a Western Empire. Okay? And there were several rulers that were part of it, and they were considered co-equal. Maximian and Auguste, they were equal rulers of East and West, and they even had different rulers in the different sections of the West and other rulers in the section of the East, and they all considered themselves equal as they navigated owning the world together. Okay? It was called a Roman tetrarchy. I can't pronounce that word. Tetarchy. Archie? Tetarchy. But I'm sure that's the wrong pronunciation. It's a system of government that was designed to end all the wars and bring peace into the Roman Empire. And it worked for a few years. Then 305, Diocletian and Maximian had power. They transferred it to their Caesars, which you see these names up here. Constantius I, that was a Caesar for Maximus. Another co-emperor, Galerius, he was a Caesar for Diocletian. So they were transferring power to these areas. Well, you know, when you give somebody power, what they usually want? More power. And that became the end, because that's what power does many times. It corrupts. The military began to put Constantine as the next Augustus. Constantine began to govern in his father's lands, including Britain and Gaul and Spain. The empire was at this little fragile peace till there was a series of deaths in 311. And when that happened, kind of like America recently, chaos spread through the empire. Now, Constantine was quite an ambitious fella. He had waited patiently, but he wanted the whole kingdom for himself. He stayed his hand. He played all the games. He had a military ally in the east, a guy named Licinius, who he would use for a while until he wanted to take him over. He would first of all go after the western kingdom. He would go after Maximian's kingdoms. Maximian was ruling in Italy and Africa, and so he was going to come after him. Maxentius declared war on Constantine in 311. He blamed him for Maximian's father's death. So all these rulers are calling themselves Augustus, and all these rulers are calling themselves Caesar, and all these rulers are claiming power, and there's total chaos in the country. Are y'all feeling this right now? There's chaos, there's power vacuums, and there's power grabs, and the empire is just divided and frustrated, and all kinds of bad stuff is happening, and the stage is getting set. Before I show you this next slide, let me say that what I'm about to declare to you by many will be controversial or even contentious. It will most certainly be disagreed with by some, and I understand why, and I understand how people have come to their conclusions, which is opposite of what I'm about to share. I do believe, however, if you'll hear me out till the end of tonight and next week, as we move into chapter 8, that you will come to the same conclusion that I have. What you're about to see is the prophet Daniel coming to life in the call for what is going to end up being today a modern revolution. We're entering into the spring of 312. Now, this year is one you want to remember. Everybody say 312. Say it again. 312. This is a major year. This is a big year. This is a big deal. It was in this year that we had the Battle of Milvian Bridge, and it is when the church was founded. We arrive in the early spring, snow's melting, and we look and we see an army of 40,000 men crossing over the Alps, moving through Italy. The army will siege every major city in northern Italy as it comes down through Rome, to get to Rome. Max, I'll just call him Max. He's resolved. He's going to wait out Constantine's army behind the solid walls of Rome. He's got great defenses in Rome. He's cut off all the bridges that lead into the city. But inside of Rome, the people are becoming anxious. They're not at rest. They've heard about Constantine's great army. They've heard about all the battles he's winning. They've heard about the chaos in the east. They've heard, and now all that hearing is starting to swell them up to a place of anxiety and worry and concern and what ifs. Are y'all feeling that? Can we understand this is a lot of America? Everybody with me? Are y'all following where I am? So this is going on in Rome. It's 312. This is a big deal. So Max says, you know what? I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to sit here. I'm going to take the battle to him. He grabs his army. He leaves the safety of Rome, and he shows up at this bridge. That is the actual bridge, Milvian Bridge. And on October the 28th of 312, 6 years to the day that the Senate had proclaimed Max to be Augustus, his belief was, Constantine can't beat me. Now, 2 4th century writers give us this story and give us some different pieces of it. I share it from a different perspective, and actually it's a little different. One is a guy named Lactantius. Another guy is named Eusebius. They provide slightly different accounts, but the same conclusion. One describes a dream, the other a vision and a dream. They both agree on the big story. Constantine dreamed and or saw something that made him have all his soldiers paint on their shields the words Kyro, meaning Christ in Greek. Constantine, says Eusebius, saw the Christian symbol of the cross in the sky hovering above the sun and the inscription on it, and it said, "Do this in this name." The Battle of Milvian Bridge on October 28, 312 would be a major moment in world history as he annihilated the Maxentius army. He took Maxentius' body, he dragged it out of the river, that river right there. He cut off his head, he mounted it on a spike, and he sent it to Carthage to tell the loyalists that their emperor was dead. And all the African provinces then quickly surrendered to Constantine. Upon winning this, Constantine got rid of tradition, and he declined to go and sacrifice at the temple of Jupiter, which was the most important pagan temple in Rome. Instead, he said he had converted to Christianity at the Battle of Milvian Bridge, and he would now reverse the fate of Christianity as a formal religion for the future. In 313, he met with Licentius of the East, and they came out with what is called the Edict of Milan. Everybody say Edict of Milan. This was a policy of Christian toleration throughout the Roman Empire. Remember, the first 300 years there had been quite a bit of persecution of any believers, and now they were getting legal relief. They even said the pagan basilicas in Rome would now serve as churches or Christian purposes, and they would give new plots of land to all the clergy, priests. One writer put it this way: the Edict of Milan marks the Roman Empire's final abandonment of the policies of persecutions for Christians. The age of the martyrs was at an end. The transition to the era of the Christian empire had begun. Now, this is where the history books begin to interpret Constantine the Great as great. They make him the hero of the story, but they forget the truth. Christianity was not his faith, it was his tool. While practicing some Christian virtues, Constantine was ruthless. He killed and tortured all political opponents, which included the guy who helped him write the Edict of Milan, Licinius. He had not even given up his godlike feeling as he put his face on coins and called himself God. His ways are still not of one who would look like an apostle. He realized politically that many different sects of people and cultures could be held together and unified through a one-world religion. He would not be able to have ruling power over all of these other peoples that he had conquered unless he got them all into the same faith. His conversion seems more politically motivated than genuine. Now, that's not to say he didn't have a vision. Maybe he did. It's not to say he wasn't given an opportunity to know God. Maybe he was. It's not to say he didn't believe he really did know God and was doing a work for God that he thought was right, even though it was not. But let us remember that he's an actor on a stage, and Daniel has already prophesied his coming day. By 324, Constantine had defeated all the Roman rulers of the East. He was the undisputed ruler of the entire Roman Empire. And as a thank you, he made Christianity, Catholicism, he made it the state's favored religion. He abandoned Rome, left Rome to crumble, moved to Byzantine, and renamed it Constantinople. By the way, that's Istanbul in modern Turkey today. Where he went, just so you can see it. Let me put some pieces together here for you. That battle changed everything. The relationship that Constantine had with the Catholic religion would be forced upon all of the empire, and it would be done through a forged relationship of church and state. He's living in Istanbul, but he sees the need to get everybody on the same page. He finds there's a major issue in the Catholic Church. It's rising up, and it could cause a problem. I mentioned this last week. We spoke about the Ancient of Days and the Son of Man being of the same substance, being divine. Well, there was a rising in the church in this period. Those who claimed that Yeshua was not divine, that he was a man, he was the Messiah, but he was not God. And a Christian priest, a Catholic priest named Arius, had started the movement. He said that God created Yeshua. So the bishop of Egypt banishes him, which is a big deal, by the way. Factions are growing now. It doesn't take long when you get bad theology to come in to ruin things. Constantine sees this. He's worked too hard to own the kingdom. So he makes a decision. He calls for a council of all the priest leaders. Now, I just want you to hear that. The emperor of Rome, or the president of the United States, or the czar of Russia, or the dictator of communist China, calls for the religious leaders to come together under his authority to decide some issues that will benefit him. Are y'all hearing me tonight? This is what happened. This is the reality of our faith where it got kicked off. I tell you, the church was not born in the book of Acts. That was the continuation of what had already been happening with the Kahal. If you don't know that history, go back and listen to the series that's on our YouTube channel. It's called Ecclesia. Listen to the first 4 of those series. It'll give you the whole history. And it's pretty good. I like it. I know the guy who taught it. It's not bad. It'll give you all the biblical words. It'll give you the scriptures behind it. It'll show all that. It's called Ecclesia. Go listen to that series. What happened in the book of Acts was not the birth of something new. It was the continuation of what was already there. But here the church is born. Well, what's it birthed? It's not birthed from the true Father. Birthed out of the state. He makes a decision, Constantine does, to call this council. The Caesar, the emperor, the ruler of Rome, has taken the lead and now is leading the church. The state is now in charge. This leads to what is called the Council of Nicaea in 325. How many of you have heard of the Council of Nicaea? Raise your hand. Most of you have. Good. Those that haven't, it's a good thing for you to be here. Congratulations. You made a good decision. So they make a decision in this council. They make a lot of decisions. Almost all of them bad. They're not all bad. There's a couple good ones. This one I'm going to tell you about is a good one. But most of them are bad. But they do decide that the Messiah is the same substance as God. The council condemns Arius. The emperor exiles him. As an act, they manifest this idea now of solidarity between the church and the state. In fact, the letter that is sent to all the churches comes from Constantine, not the priest. So they had a couple major issues they were dealing with. The second one was, is Yeshua God? And the answer was they came to the conclusion that he was. By the way, this argument of is Yeshua or is the Messiah divine goes on to today. It's never left, and it's growing. In fact, a survey in 2022 was done by Lifeway Christian Research, and here's what it found. 53% of professing Christians and 43% of evangelicals agree with the statement, Jesus was a great teacher, but he was not God. Y'all thought I was just talking about some crazy stuff. I'm telling you, this is where we are. Arius is in the house because we married the state. Let that sink in for a sec. Arius is ruling us because we married the state. The Roman Empire tried to combine state and church in order to define truth. And it was this combo that presents the greatest of all problems. And we've been through a great deal of history tonight, which I know is not everyone's happy place. But I did feel like we needed to cover this ground if we were going to determine the little horn and then see its relevance for today. In this background that I've given you now, we see the problem with church and state. I know that as Americans, there are two distinct groups. One group believes wholeheartedly that the church and state must be separate and agree that all religion should remain private with the freedom to exercise it as one sees fit. The other group believes that the founders wanted us to be a Christian nation and determined that a nation that does not serve the Lord will not survive. And so they are trying to promote America as a Christian nation and one that should allow the free exercise thereof, but more importantly, they should promote it. Louisiana and Oklahoma, for example, as states, just made it to law to put the Ten Commandments on the walls of all the public schools in those two states, the church and the state now is making the schools put the commandments on their walls. And most Christians all applaud. Yes, amen. We ought, absolutely. We got to put the back. And I've preached that before. I've preached that. I've said before from this pulpit. And I started to really get convicted and really study. And I really realized I was wrong. The difficult thing for me to say. I've been a teacher of American history from the founders and even the Pilgrims' viewpoint. And I've had to come to a fact that this nation was founded on a Declaration of Independence from the crown and the state-run religion of the Church of England, which anoints the king and the queen as the head of the church. This country was brought to being under a document that wanted freedom for its citizens from state-run faith. This country was founded under a constitution, and that constitution was not the Torah. I know I'm bothering you right now. We're getting ready to go into an election. I get it. I understand. I feel it. I can sense it in the room right now. There's some of you who are so mad at me right now. You're disagreeing. I get it. I understand. It's going against our little heart because, hey, I'm a patriot's patriot. I love America. Sherry will tell you. I am. If you saw my bookshelf, I got books, and I love this country. But we have taken a turn in our ideology and our idolatry. And the reason I'm giving you this history is because it happens to be appropriate with Daniel 7, because this is what happened with the beast. This is the little horn. As a follower of the Messiah, I live in a country. I can't believe I'm going to say this stuff. As a follower of the Messiah, I live in a country that is not a Judeo-Christian nation, that is not a Christian nation. And I know that when I say that, the immediate thought is, yeah, that's because we ran away from God. I'm telling you, we were never supposed to be. I know. I've taught from this pulpit almost opposite of that. So I repent. Forgive me. When God's truth is God's truth, we just have to agree to what God's truth is. And the reality is the founders actually ran away from a state-run faith. Every founding document was opposite of what we teach each other these days. The founding documents were all about, we want our faith to be practiced and exercised. And we desperately don't want the state to have anything to do with it. We don't want them to tell us what to do, and we don't want them to tell us what we can't do. And that goes for all the citizens of this great country. We say we have a separation of church and state, and the arguments have been here forever. Well, Thomas Jefferson said that, but he never did, and all the big debates and all that argument. The reality is it doesn't matter what Thomas Jefferson said or didn't say in a letter. The reality is if you let the church, or in my word, I don't like the word church, no offense, the word ecclesia, the word kahal, the Hebrew word, if you let the ecclesia be run in partnership with the government, then you have put another God in place of the God of the Bible. Amen. Thank you. That was tepid at best because some of y'all are struggling right now. And it's okay. You're going to have to work through this. I get it. It's okay. And I have no problem if you disagree with all of this. I would encourage you to listen to this again and then go through the history yourself. Do your due diligence. But I'm here to tell you, when church and state come together, it's a big problem. There's not a single historical reference throughout history where they work together successfully. because it was never God's plan. Now, let me say it this way. I'm off my notes now, so I don't know that we'll get anywhere from here. But let me say it this way. What was God's plan then for how to rule the people? Well, God wanted a theocracy. Not a democracy and not a republic. Everybody say theocracy. A theocracy is where there is only one God and only one constitution, His book. So when all the people have submitted to His word under His lordship, and that is the rulership of the people, then we have a theocracy. Then we're walking in the kind of government God wants. But I'm here to tell you that's not happening this side of the return. We just read in Daniel when it's going to happen. We will be the possessors of that kind of kingdom. It's coming. You have hope. You have hope. But it's not today. Not yet. Okay? So the reality is we're living in a world where there is the kedoshim that is being oppressed, beat up, hurt. Are y'all following Daniel? Why? Because we're in the Roman Empire. The next part of Daniel 7 will actually identify in very great detail for us this little horn and how it plays out not only in ancient times in Rome, but how it goes forward to today. And we identify some persons that are the little horn, not just the corporate entity. I love the fact that God has given us freedom. A freedom of worship, a freedom of opportunity to gather together, to be with one another, to read His Word, to be a community of faith. I don't like the fact that we, as the body of Messiah over the last century, have submitted our practices of faith to the government. Marriage, property, birth, death, the cycles of life that we have committed to the government on how to run our life, our faith practices. That being said, I still do really love this country. I really do. I believe in freedom and exercise and practice of our faith. But I think all of us, to some degree or another, have been bamboozled or deceived or just bought into a rhetoric that is not biblical. And you're going to hear so much of it this week. From now until November, it's going to be from a megaphone. God's name is going to be invoked on everything you can imagine. Christian faith is going to be invoked on everything you can imagine. We're living in Daniel 7 and forward. We're in those times. And this church, ecclesia, state, marriage, number one, it should have never happened. And number two, you need to divorce yourself from it in your heart. Because our Father doesn't approve. And His Scripture doesn't allow it. All right. Y'all endured. You did amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will see you next week. God bless you. See you next time.